Ever wondered what happens when a fighter's career takes a sudden turn? You won't believe the shocking twist in Lutterbach's UFC journey. We'll dive into the specifics of the failed drug test, revealing exactly what substance was found and how it led to such a severe penalty. We'll learn about the UFC's swift reaction to the test results and why they chose to terminate Lutterbach's contract immediately. We'll also discuss what this decision means for Lutterbach's standing in the sport and the precedent it sets for other fighters. Stay tuned as we break down all the facts, the fallout, and what this means for the future of Lutterbach in the world of mixed martial arts. This is one story you won't want to miss. All the information in this video is sourced directly from the official MMA fighting website, ensuring you get accurate and up-to-date details on JL's situation. Lutterbach, a promising UFC fighter, recently admitted to using performance-enhancing drugs before getting a last-minute chance to fight in the UFC. This admission has led to serious consequences, both for his career and reputation. The situation unfolded when Lutterbach tested positive for a banned substance during a routine drug test conducted by the Combat Sports Anti-Doping (CSAD) agency. The test, administered on June 8th, revealed the presence of 3-A-hydroxy-2-A-methyl-5-A-androstan 17-1, a metabolite of drostanolone. Drostanolone is an anabolic steroid, commonly used to enhance muscle growth and physical performance. This substance is strictly prohibited under the UFC's anti-doping policy, which aims to maintain a level playing field and ensure the safety of all competitors. Lutterbach's positive test came just 2 weeks before he was scheduled to fight Sharamagomedov at UFC Saudi Arabia, a highly anticipated event. Upon learning of the positive result, Lutterbach was notified on June 20th, just 2 days before the event, while he was staying at the host hotel. The timing of the news was undoubtedly shocking and disappointing, not only for Lutterbach but also for the UFC and fans who were looking forward to the bout. The test result essentially put an immediate halt to Lutterbach's participation in the fight, and it became clear that his future in the UFC was in serious jeopardy. What made matters worse for Lutterbach was his admission of extensive use of drostanolone before he even signed with the UFC. This was a significant factor in the severity of the penalty he received. According to UFC's anti-doping policy, athletes are required to declare any use of prohibited substances ahead of time, particularly if the use occurred before signing with the organization. Lutterbach's failure to disclose this information led to a harsher punishment, as it was seen as a violation of trust and transparency, both critical elements in maintaining the integrity of the sport. As a result, Lutterbach accepted a 24-month ban from the sport, a penalty that could be career-ending for many athletes. This 2-year suspension means that he will be unable to compete in any UFC events, severely limiting his ability to stay in shape, maintain his skills, and remain relevant in the highly competitive world of mixed martial arts. The suspension also carries a significant stigma, as being associated with performance-enhancing drugs can damage an athlete's reputation, making it difficult for them to secure future opportunities, whether in the UFC or other fighting organizations. This situation has broader implications as well. For the UFC, it serves as a reminder of the importance of strict anti-doping measures to preserve the sport's integrity. For other fighters, it highlights the risks and consequences of using performance-enhancing drugs. The UFC's anti-doping policy is designed to protect the health of fighters and ensure that all competitors have a fair chance to succeed based on their natural abilities and hard work, rather than relying on artificial enhancements. Lutterbach's positive drug test had immediate and severe consequences, both personally and professionally. The UFC responded swiftly to the news of his failed test by terminating his contract, a move that underscored the organization's commitment to maintaining a strict anti-doping policy. The sequence of events began when Lutterbach, who had recently signed with the UFC, tested positive for a banned substance. The test, conducted as part of the UFC's standard procedure for all fighters, revealed that he had used performance-enhancing drugs, PEDs, before his signing. Upon receiving these results, the UFC acted quickly, pulling him from his scheduled fight and ultimately deciding to terminate his contract. Lutterbach's response to the situation was somewhat surprising. Rather than denying the allegations or attempting to mitigate the situation, he openly admitted to using PEDs. In a post on social media, he explained that he had used anabolic steroids 3 months prior, not knowing at the time that he would be signed by the UFC. His honesty was unusual in the world of professional sports, where athletes often deny or downplay such allegations. Lutterbach's statement acknowledged his wrongdoing, but also suggested that he believed he had a chance to compete cleanly, even after the steroid use. He further stated that he could have avoided the situation by hiding out in remote locations, like the mountains or Thailand, where he might have evaded testing, as he claimed others have done. However, he chose to take the risk, believing he had flushed the drugs out of his system and would pass the tests required by the UFC. This admission, while candid, did little to mitigate the consequences he faced. The termination of Lutterbach's contract was not only a punishment for his failed test, but also a preemptive move to protect the UFC's reputation. As one of the leading organizations in MMA, the UFC is under constant scrutiny from fans, sponsors, and regulators. Any perception that the UFC is soft on doping could have serious repercussions, including loss of credibility and trust. By cutting ties with Lutterbach, the UFC reinforced its stance on clean competition and demonstrated that it values the integrity of the sport over the individual careers of its fighters. Lutterbach's ineligibility to return to the UFC until June 23, 2026, further highlights the seriousness of his violation. This 2-year suspension is a significant setback for any athlete, especially in a sport as physically demanding as MMA, where prime competitive years are limited. For Lutterbach, the suspension effectively puts his career on hold, and it remains uncertain whether he will be able to return to the same level of competition after such a long absence. The most immediate implication for Lutterbach is the loss of his UFC contract. Being signed by the UFC is a significant milestone for any MMA fighter, often marking the peak of their career. For Lutterbach, who had worked hard to reach this level, the termination of his contract is a severe blow. The UFC is the premier organization in MMA, and losing a contract with them means losing the opportunity to compete on the biggest stage in the sport. This could make it extremely difficult for him to regain his footing, as the UFC is known for its rigorous standards and highly competitive environment. Without a UFC contract, he will have to seek opportunities in smaller promotions, which typically offer less visibility, lower pay, and fewer opportunities to compete against top-tier talent. The suspension Lutterbach faces is another major hurdle. With a 2-year ban from the sport, he will be unable to compete in any sanctioned MMA events until June 23, 2026. This suspension period is critical, especially considering the physical demands of MMA and the limited window athletes have to perform at their peak. During this time, he will not only miss out on valuable fighting experience, but also face challenges in maintaining his physical conditioning and sharpness. Beyond the immediate impact of losing his contract and the suspension, Lutterbach's reputation has taken a significant hit. The admission of steroid use, particularly his candid acknowledgement of using the substance just 3 months before signing with the UFC, has damaged his credibility as a clean and fair competitor. In the world of professional sports, especially in a discipline as intense and closely monitored as MMA, an athlete's reputation is crucial. Being associated with performance-enhancing drugs can lead to skepticism from fans, promoters, and fellow fighters. It may also result in a loss of sponsorships and other financial opportunities, further complicating Lutterbach's career prospects. The long-term implications for Lutterbach's career are uncertain. While it's possible for fighters to return from suspensions and rebuild their careers, the road ahead for Lutterbach is steep and fraught with challenges. He will need to work tirelessly to regain his reputation, prove his commitment to competing cleanly, and demonstrate that he still has the skills and drive to succeed in MMA. However, given the highly competitive nature of the sport and the stigma attached to doping violations, it will be an uphill battle. The bottom line is that Lutterbach's career is now hanging in the balance. With a 2-year suspension, the end of his UFC contract, and his reputation on the line, he's facing a tough road ahead. Will he be able to bounce back from this, or is his time in MMA over? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure. This story isn't over yet. Make sure to stay tuned and keep watching for more updates on Lutterbach and other breaking news in the MMA world. You won't want to miss what happens next.